All right, I believe we are live now. All right, hello and welcome to this month's edition of IT Leaders Collaborative, where we like to partner with our different vendor partners that we work with to deliver solutions to our clients and just also educational awareness for the solutions that are in the market. The security world is complex, technology is complex, and so we just try to keep people up to date. Today we're bringing in Field Effect, and one of the reasons why we started the IT Leaders Collaborative, and we'd love to have you join if you have IT professionals or enthusiasts that are just curious or interested, want to learn more, is that there's so much to learn, and then when you feel like you've learned something about a solution, then time goes on and then things change. And so how do you keep up to date and how up to speed on things that are new and up and coming and changing, so that you can iterate and adapt to how you feel might fit your organization? So again, that's the purpose, that's the reason why we're here. So we're it's great that we have Field Effect joining us. Ryan McBride's going to be walking us through some stories, weaving in some new solutions that are, by the way, hint, hint, they're going to be seen on cyber liability underwriting questions. You're going to want to check those boxes probably in the coming 12 to 18 months if you haven't already had to do it. So that's what we're going to learn. We're going to talk about that with Ryan, but trying to apply this some technical nuance to some real world stories and weave in some ways in which you can better protect your organization in the future. So Ryan, with that said, thanks for joining us today and taking your time. I know you do a lot of these conversations, but I appreciate you joining MyTech and supporting our efforts to help our IT leaders continually improve and educate themselves.
Thanks so much. I really appreciate the opportunity to be speaking with everybody today and working with our valued partners, MyTech partners. Today, as Nathan mentioned, we're going to be speaking about some of the nuanced security components that people will likely continue to see over the upcoming 12 to 18 months through their insurance organizations requiring them of their cyber insurance policy to be included, and talk a little bit about the stories that we've seen to date of organizations facing threats across these new nuances that we're going to be discussing. And we're going to do that by looking at and hearing a little bit more about the technical side of the Field Effect MDR Complete platform, which is what we'll be walking through today. So that's where we're going to begin from a slide standpoint, is talking a little bit about the Field Effect MDR and how it was created and why it was created. So really, it was recognized that there was a need in the market for a more advanced mechanism to complete the detection and response function today. So historically, what has existed that most people will be aware of is endpoint protection and firewall technology as the current means, as the traditional means of protecting your organization from intrusion and conducting the threat detection and response function within the organization. Now, the premise historically of endpoint protection is that it would scan files on disk for matches with known bad things like malware. And there would be this big maintained list of malware. The software, like the AV solution on your computer, will scan the files looking for matches of known malware with this list. When they're detected, they're able to quarantine them and remove them from the system. Now, every ransomware attack you've heard of in the last 5 years that's occurred, every single one of the companies, they all had endpoint protection plus a firewall before the attack. And in most cases, the cyber criminal is able to gain access to those systems undetected, disable the cybersecurity solution, and roll out their malware. And we're going to start with a bit of a story that talks a little bit about this type of a scenario that you may find interesting. 3 years ago, a threat actor was perusing the dark web during the reconnaissance phase of their attack. So most bad guys will begin their attack doing some form of reconnaissance, whether that's looking on the dark web, whether that's checking out different types of sites that enumerate vulnerabilities present on internet visible technology. And so this particular threat actor was just looking through the dark web and found somebody selling credentials to VPNs. So credentials that had been stolen, username and passwords to VPN technologies. And they spotted one that was linked with a pretty big company that most people are aware of. So the threat actor They basically used cryptocurrency to purchase these credentials themselves. And then they tried to use the VPN to access technology in the network at this big company. Now, they did have MFA enabled. So the person just decided they were going to continue to spam MFA requests. And so they spammed MFA requests over and over and over for about an hour. And there was 100 plus MFA requests in this time frame, repeatedly coming through. Eventually, the threat actor decided, hey, what if I can just find this person on LinkedIn and see what info I can gather? So they continued their reconnaissance. They jumped on LinkedIn. They found this person, and they had their phone number listed on LinkedIn, their contact information.
Yeah.
So the threat actor went to WhatsApp and punched in their number and sent them a message that said, hey, it's Ryan from this big company, from the IT department. We're trying to gain access with your VPN. Can you please accept that MFA request? And of course, the person received this message and thought, okay. And they accepted that MFA authentication request. So this provided access for the bad guy to access the internal infrastructure, and they actually gained access to a server in the network. Within that server, there was some critical information that they were able to gain access to, like administrative access to their EDR platform, information related to their Microsoft tenant, financial information. They had a bug bounty they had access to in there. Now, this threat actor, was actually an 18-year-old kid, and they weren't a sophisticated bad guy. So if this happened to be a persistent threat group or an advanced threat, they could have easily just logged into the EDR platform, started to disable the security technology and roll out ransomware. But they didn't. He actually just jumped on the equivalent of Teams, went into the all company chat and said things like, hey, you've been hacked, and basically just trolled them on Teams. But this was an example of, this big company, which happened to be Uber. So everybody's used Uber. This was Uber, actually. They had a leading EDR platform. It didn't detect this intrusion, and it could have unfolded very unfortunately. And we've seen this exact type of attack methodology be successful and go the other direction. Instead of it just being trolling on social chat, it actually be a terrible situation. And so there's been this need for a while now, actually, for a much more sophisticated way to detect these types of attack techniques and detect the behaviors that bad guys are using nowadays to actually get into an environment and create a disruption.
Ryan, I think you mentioned something that I actually heard a story about this recently as well, about I think I was reading an article about it or something about MFA bombing, where they just they keep trying to do it because you might be, because even one time, if you accidentally click the wrong thing, right, you're on your phone and maybe you're trying to swipe it to dismiss it, and then one of the 100 times that they're MFA bombing you hit the wrong thing, which could be easily done on a phone, you let them in. And so these are, that is something that it's interesting. I've just heard it a couple times now. And again, I'm less technical than the other folks on the call. I know Michael's very, very technical, but from an end user perspective, you really have to look out for that, right? And so if you're an internal IT person trying to talk about this, I would educate your end user. This is not typically in a security awareness training video. They're going to bomb you with all these requests moment after moment after moment, and just the fatigue of it, you might inadvertently say yes. Or maybe one of the times you're actually trying to MFA and you get the request and you're trying to which one is the one I'm supposed to approve? So many different, it's a simple little mistake could let somebody in, just like what you described, without even having to go to the WhatsApp side of thing and actually getting them to social engineer them.
Well, yeah, and that really speaks to MFA fatigue, just like you said within one of your sentences. They're hoping the fatigue is it's fine, I'll click it. Oh, it's just a link. What's the worst that can happen? They just want that way in, and then it's game over.
It's absolutely true. And this is why it's critically important when these types of behaviors occur in an environment. These are the things that as an IT operator, you would like to be notified of. It would be great if a security solution would bring that to your attention as an alert that said, hey, heads up, somebody's had MFA authentication requests happen 50 times in the last 20 minutes. Were you aware of this? Did you know this was happening? There are a lot of security solutions that are even in place today out in the wild that may not offer this type of functionality. And this is sort of what we're alluding to with a more sophisticated means of detection being required today. So very good points about MFA. So let's talk a little bit about some of the vectors of attack that are now being used, because the reality is that endpoint protection has been around for 2 decades, and some sort of analysis via EDR platforms have evolved more so in the last 5 to 10 years. But bad guys have well figured out that there are many other ways to get into an environment, and it was as recent as 5 years ago when many businesses had to adopt new technologies, cloud technologies, enable new network protocols to allow for a remote workforce. When COVID happened, a bunch of businesses opened up new doors and windows into their environment. So there's other vectors to definitely give consideration to. Now, when Field Effect was designed, it was designed by somebody who had, when our MDR solution was designed, it was actually designed by somebody who had an intimate understanding with the latest and greatest cybersecurity technology. And I'll tell you just a brief story about who we are at Field Effect and how the Field Effect solution came to be, if that's okay. And then we'll dive into the vectors of attack. So Field Effect was actually created by this guy, Matt Holland. Matt Holland's our founder. He began his career at the unique branch of government tasked with IT security and foreign signals intelligence.
Now, allegedly.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Allegedly. Matt's experience was working in part with organizations like the FBI, the NSA, the CIA, MI5 and MI6, and intelligence agencies from neighboring countries, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, and the United States, of course. And he worked in this alliance that you may have heard of called the Five Eyes Alliance. And within the Five Eyes Alliance, there's a specialized group called the Tailored Access Operations Group, whose primary objective is foreign signals intelligence, or obtaining strategic and operational intelligence on behalf of our 5 nations. Matt became well known as one of the best intelligence tradecraft and kernel level developers during this time. That was on the forefront, basically leading the team responsible for foreign signals intelligence. So he became intimately familiar with the latest and greatest security technology out there, needless to say. Eventually, he left the government and started his own privatized intelligence agency called Lynchpin Labs, where less than 150 people were delivering this intelligence back into the Five Eyes agencies. And they had faced at the time a challenge that many businesses face today. And that's basically they faced counterintelligence from advanced level threats, but they were facing threats from advanced threat actors and needed to protect themselves. The problem was they knew there were some gaps and flaws in the latest and greatest security technology, and they didn't want to deploy the same tech they'd been beating to protect themselves. So they actually went to the lab and developed something from the ground up. Little did they know they'd be creating this platform that we're talking about today, intentionally designed for a small, medium business and designed in a way that could provide the most advanced level of detection, analytics, and response capabilities. And little did they know, in 2016, they would actually end up spinning off Field Effect with our MDR solution at the heart of it. It was intentionally designed to protect small, medium business from this advanced level threat. And so when we talk about the vectors of attack, the platform's designed to cover off some of these key vectors of attack we continue to see exploited today. And so that's what we're going to talk a little bit about now. So we work with, we're a cyber forensics company that works with organizations that may be experiencing catastrophic cyber events. And we work with an organization that manufactures donuts commercially. So they manufacture on the West Coast donuts, and they ship them across the country to various retailers. And we had a conversation, an in-person conversation with the CEO of this organization, who described the attack to us weeks after we had conducted the incident response and helped resolve the issue. We were not in place at the time when this attack happened, for the record. What had happened was somebody within their organization received a phishing email, and we've all seen phishing emails. Unfortunately, this user had succumbed to the attempt and had clicked the link, inadvertently added their username and password credentials, and lost access to their account, where a threat actor was able to gain entry. The threat actor then emailed the person in accounting a link that was able to exploit their account and gain access to their 365 account, the finance person's 365 account. Now, the threat actor then, with access to the accounting person's account, emailed every single contact that they have ever communicated with, and this was 10,000 people, a change of bank information. So basically, they had set up inbox rules that would hide the sent email from the accounting person and any responses by dumping them to an RSS feed, and then sent this change of bank information to all their clients saying, hey, using the same template they normally would, saying, hey, we've changed our bank information, so any payments need to be made to this account. A few weeks after this event occurred, a CEO from a business they do business with regularly reached out directly to the CEO of the donut manufacturing company and said, hey, we sent you a PO. We paid, we processed payment for an order. We haven't seen the order show up on our side. And the CEO said, what are you talking about? Let me look into that right away. And looked into it, and they didn't see any payments. They didn't understand anything that had happened. But what had inadvertently happened is one of their clients paid $25,000 to a threat actor, which, they never received the payment and they didn't process the order. And they discovered at that time that this had happened. Now, this had pretty grave consequences. The CEO's words literally in the boardroom were, how many more $25,000 orders am I going to have to fulfill for our clients? And this all stemmed from, a 365 compromise, which was pretty catastrophic. There was reputational damage because the PR work that happens when one of these types of attacks unfold is really going back to all of the clients and all the people that were emailed and saying, hey, we apologize. That was not an actual change of information. Please use this. They have to craft a PR email. There could be legal ramifications, insurance ramifications. So it has a pretty substantial impact. But 365 and Google Workspace, these productivity apps, these email applications continue to be top targeted attack vectors within the businesses that we all support, but often go unprotected beyond a spam filter where emails can get through to the actual protections for the compromised account. So assuming the account is going to get compromised, do we have automated response mechanisms to revoke the user session, terminate the user session, force a password reset scenario? Do we have those protection layers in place where we can effectively defend an account that is attempting to be compromised?
Yeah, Ryan, I think that's one of the things that we've even seen. We have a story of that where there was a client that there was one user that had not turned on MFA, and their account got compromised. And basically the same thing happened where they were able to get in. Again, business email compromise is like you said, still the number one vector to get compromised. And the financial they started learning their clients and learning their invoices. They did the same thing. They emulated an invoice that was actually legitimate, but had the different banking information. And in this instance, the vendor that they were working with wired $1.2 million to the wrong account, and it was more than a month between them realizing it. And so the money was absolutely gone. I have experienced this where the timing of it, where there was another client that had it happen, but it was a totally, they had actually cut a check and like FedEx to check or something like that. It was social engineering, same kind of way, but they caught it in time and were able to stop payment on it. So like if you catch it within like a day or two, you can usually stop the money or get the money back. But this had happened. It was more than a month in between the time of that happening and realizing it, and the money was gone. And so and so I think my point in saying that is that this has been an evolution of like not just having MFA, but you said something I think that's super critical that people don't always think about is you have to presume that through social engineering or accidents or someone being MFA bombed and accidentally maybe letting somebody in or being social engineered, that's going to happen across all your team. Do you have 100% confidence? And if you ever do phishing tests and you see people that I guarantee you have one person that clicks on the phishing email. It happens every single company that we've ever seen. That's all it takes. So you have to presume that somebody's going to get in. You have to presume that they're gonna be lurking in dark corners, and that you have to have the next evolution of security to be able to see those things and alert on those things, or at least the potential indicators of those things. So anyway, Ryan, it's true stories. We see it happen, and again, I think that's where sometimes I hear folks say, well, do I really need that? Like, I don't think I need all that. Well, we see it all the time, and yeah, maybe it's not going to happen to you, but over enough time, it will. So anyway.
Well, yeah, it's the bad actors are building a database that you probably would be amazed at, because we're humans. We like to share, hey, I'm going to go here. Hey, I'm going to go there. Oh, cool. They know where you went. They know where you work. There's probably public email, et cetera, et cetera. Now you've just cascaded into events that you may not want to have happen. You're on your cell phone, you're remote. Oh, you didn't see all the links. You click it, game over.
Yeah, it's a very important point to highlight, that presuming that the account is going to get compromised, it's a lot easier for a threat actor to steal money by gaining access to an email account than it is for them to deploy software across the entire environment that's going to encrypt the data, hold them for ransom, extort them for ransom, exfil the data. Many of us are IT operators, and just thinking about the processes you would have to undergo for good reasons to do some of the same things, rolling out software across an entire environment, backing up to the cloud data. These are all the things that have to happen. There's not a magic button that threat actors have that allows them to just like roll out ransomware and encrypt the environment and it all works properly. There's a lot of work that goes into these attacks and time and effort. So it's a lot easier, especially as an individual operator, as an individual threat actor, to just break into the email and then do a financial redirection in some case to make money. There are really three types of groups of threat actors that we see. There's the first one that I just described that attacked Uber, that's really of low sophistication. And they're really just, they're messing around. They're not a huge risk. They are a risk, obviously, but they aren't like the far other end of the spectrum, which are state-sponsored threats and advanced persistent threat groups that exist in countries where the legislation may be poor to prosecute criminals. They may have extradition limitations. So sort of criminals in a sense are protected if they're conducting crime against foreign soil. There are all these circumstances that allow groups basically to get together and perform advanced attacks. And those groups, there's a lot of time and investment involved in, crafting an attack, especially when multiple people are involved. So they're looking for a decent sized payout. The large middle group, the large majority, are really just opportunistic cyber criminals. They may be individual operators. These individual operators are really going to go after any exploitable vulnerability, after any email that responds, after any access they can gain. They aren't going to Zoom info and looking up how much annual revenue a business does before they attack them. They're just basically going off a spreadsheet of IPs or domains with associated vulnerabilities, and they're going there first. or they're
that Zoom Info subscription's expensive. Like, why would I pay for that?
Exactly.
I'm not going to do that.
So exactly. So if you're looking at like a list of businesses from Norway, at first glance, you're not going to know how much revenue each of them does. So you're kind of just going to go wherever you can. So the large middle group is really opportunistic. And so as an individual operator, if you can gain access to an email and trick them into routing money, that's the route you're going to go. Another interesting case that we encountered was related to the network layer. And the network layer is one that also often goes without visibility. So like being able to see what's happening in real time on the network, not looking at log data, but in real time, looking at communications from different devices in or out of your network. A lot of people have added Internet of Things technology, including security camera systems, into their environment. And we worked with a parts manufacturer that worked with a large automotive dealer. And they had an internal security camera system set up, network connected, to monitor activity inside their warehouse. Now, inadvertently, the manager had meetings outside of the office, but was concerned about the productivity that was taking place inside the office when he wasn't there, and wanted to be able to log into the security camera system to see what was going on when he wasn't there. Now, nobody wants to remember extra username and passwords to systems. Nobody has time for that these days. So he just enabled the default login for the security camera system so he could log in and see what was going on. Now, inadvertently, this actually exposed that login publicly to the internet. And that login was found by a cyber criminal, an opportunistic cyber criminal who actually found their way in, escaped the application onto the server it was hosted, authenticated as a legitimate user, as this manager, and then was able to use that access to make their way around the network, disable their security technology, roll out ransomware, and bring this manufacturing facility that generates millions of dollars of revenue annually to a complete halt. And this was a pretty serious attack, and it stemmed from a security camera system and an inadvertent change that the manager made to see what the staff were doing during the day. We got called in to try and resolve the situation, but it was not pleasant for anybody involved. It was a real unfortunate scenario. But many businesses, and we encounter this one all the time, when you have technology that you add into your environment that you can install an endpoint on, but it is network connected, it's important to be able to see certain security related metadata. What is the domain that this device is resolving to or from? How much data normally communicates versus how much is now communicating? What internet service provider is this connection stemming from? There's a lot of security related metadata, important data that you can pull from the network connection that can give you a heads up into anomalous activity. But many organizations don't have this, but have introduced new technologies. So that was another scenario related to the network.
Yeah, I know that what they've talked about. There's a famous story out there that I love to reference is where there's an Internet of Things fish tank thermometer that was used to hack a casino. That's the target hack, which was way before some of this technology was even around, was through an HVAC vendor that had access to their system, right? You turn on an IoT thermostat to just control the temperature in your office. Or, so many of these things. And a big part of the problem is if you're usually as an IT department, you're doing firmware updates, you're making sure switch firmware is up to date and firewall firmware is up to date, and, BIOS firmware and operating systems are patched and applications are patched. But there's not a great way to get visibility to when that IoT thermostat needs to be updated, or I don't know, maybe there's probably not too many people that have an IoT thermometer for their fish tank, but maybe, I don't know, maybe that's part of the problem. But security cameras is definitely a huge one, right? Like door access systems, like these things that you have network enabled. The problem is there's not an easy way to like make sure they're updated or even get alerted when they need to get updated. And so they're just these massive vulnerabilities and holes in your potential security posture that and typically those devices themselves are built for convenience, not for security. And so their security posture isn't that great either. So yeah, Ryan, what you're saying, like that's our world. Like even I bought a new appliance recently, and it wants to connect to my Wi-Fi and has an app that I can control on my phone. I'm like, oh my God. And here in my head, I'm like, I gotta like have this on a separate SSID because I gotta VLAN this thing. You know what I mean? Because I don't want someone getting into my stuff through my dishwasher or whatever, my oven or something like that. So, I mean, it's real. This stuff's real. And so having that network layer and being able to kind of see the traffic across that and know what's going on and know it's suspicious or like what's normal versus not normal and what you should my dishwasher be talking to Russia? Probably not, right? Like there's things like that you can see only if you're paying attention.
Yeah, absolutely. There's in many of the businesses that we support, we're seeing like in manufacturing, network connected CNC machines or operational technology in healthcare. There could be medical equipment, medical technology,
imaging machines, and
exactly.
like right, absolutely, yep.
Yeah, we're seeing all that kind of stuff. Things that you can't install an endpoint agent on, but are connected to the network and connected to the internet. All that type of technology. And industrial control systems are another major offender where they're just blatantly network connected and may not have MFA set up and can provide access. So let's talk briefly about sort of the three vectors. We'll look at the slides again, really briefly here. The three vectors that we're really talking about from a visibility perspective that are critical are your network, your cloud applications, and your endpoints. So from a unified visibility perspective, we would start by deploying a sensor that captures full visibility via packet capture analysis on the network, which typically involves deploying an actual appliance just inside the firewall off a span port. It allows us to see everything in real time that's communicating in or out of the network. So that's Internet of Things tech, operational tech, rogue devices, mobile devices, as well as known devices, of course. And it's an unavoidable source of truth, which is an important piece to note. So an unavoidable source of truth means that a threat actor is not able to circumvent it or avoid it. So it's critically important.
So Ryan, let me chime in real quick. So we could secure, say it's your network, we could secure it to the nth degree, firmware's up to date, policies are in place. Then Nate's another member of the team. He's like, hey, I need this tool, this thing. He puts it on the network with the vendor. And we're like, cool, the vendor's going to manage that. Okay, separate VLAN. But then now you're like, we just got alerted that it doesn't have our endpoint for protection. We're seeing weird traffic, extensive traffic. So that's which I know you're going to dive into it, but that's kind of the real world example that applies back to what your tools can help.
Yeah, exactly. That's it exactly. So without a network sensor, a lot of this stuff is invisible and it's behaviors and communications that are just going unobserved. The network sensor plays an important role and you can't get around it as a cyber criminal. It basically sits at the edge, just inside the firewall off your core switch, and it sees everything is communicating in or out. And it's the security-related metadata, which there's a lot of very valuable information that's security-related metadata. We're not decrypting information on the network, but looking at, for instance, what ISP is this communication stemming from, what IP or device ID or what location, how much data, what type of data. There's a lot of related information that you can capture that's very relevant from security context perspective with respect to the network communication. The second sensor, which is critical in this layer for unified visibility, is an endpoint agent. So preferably a kernel level endpoint agent, which is what it is in our case, that's going to give you raw security event telemetry directly from the host. So not relying on Windows event logs, which can be disabled, and not relying on an AV platform that's looking at disk and doing disk analysis exclusively. but a kernel level endpoint agent that's analyzing raw security event telemetry that can't be disabled. And this becomes another unavoidable source of truth, providing the most detailed information possible directly from the host. And this would include anything Linux, Mac, Windows, desktop, laptop, server, virtual or physical, across the board. And so now you've got two unavoidable sources of truth providing real-time and the most detailed information possible directly from the source. The third sensor we would deploy that's critically important, especially today, under the assumption that somebody will gain access, is a cloud sensor. The cloud sensor is going to tie into critical cloud applications. Importantly, productivity apps like Google and Microsoft, but also including AWS, Azure, Salesforce, Okta, Duo, Box, Dropbox.com, a bunch of cloud applications. And this is going to give us important visibility required to observe potential intrusion attempts and or take automated or human-driven response actions against those applications. Using these three unified sensors, we're able to see in real time as much detail as possible from all three sources. And the system is designed to consistently provide the same data because it's built from the ground up as one unified system. The advantage to this is that you can apply against this information highly sophisticated behavioral analytics. So a behavioral analytics engine is applied here to look for the techniques, tactics, or procedures that a threat actor may undergo at any stage of an attack. It's critically important. And this is well beyond just malware and malware's normal behavior. This needs to include things like the use of tools that are expected in an environment, remote administration tools, like let's say team viewers popped up in an environment and it's never been seen before. It needs to be able to identify, network protocol like a VPN being used by somebody it shouldn't, even though it's legitimate credentials, to authenticate with a device, and be able to take an automated response action in that scenario, which we've seen a lot of these days, unfortunately. So there are lots of behaviors that you would want to look for in an environment. And some of the analytics that are required to look for those behaviors are shown here: historic behavioral analysis, active behavioral analysis, and threat intelligence source analysis. Historic behavioral analytics are used in the cloud type scenario we discussed earlier. Now, let's say Michael is on vacation, and Michael's gone to the Caribbean on vacation, and he's logging into his 365 account from his mobile device. Well, we should be able to observe that Michael's logging in to 365 from the same mobile device he's logged into 1,000 times already, logging in from a reputable internet service provider. The time frame at which his last login took place to the login now would be reasonable for him to travel that distance. He's logging in at a time frame that he normally would. He's doing things that he normally would within his email, and know with certainty that's Michael. There's not concerns about that. We don't need to alert that to already busy IT operators. We can know with confidence that's Michael.
The problem with that, Ryan, is that Michael is not allowed to take vacation, so your whole premise starts on the wrong foundation. No, I'm just kidding. No, it's very real stuff. Michael, we'd love for you to go on vacation whenever you can. I know you're always hardworking, so.
Yeah, but only on the 25th and the 26th.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So let's say the opposite scenario happens, though, where Michael's diligently working at work, but now we observe somebody trying to log into Michael's account from a VPN we've never seen before, a device we've never seen before, a location we've never seen before, from CobraNet internet service provider. There's a lot of security-related metadata that we can observe related to that connection and know with certainty that's not Michael logging in, and take an automated response action immediately, revoking the user session, terminating the user session, forcing a password reset. That level of protection is the standard today for effectively protecting your email from compromise. That's kind of what's required. And historic behavioral analysis really is really the leading analytic that's behind an automated response in those scenarios. And you can extrapolate that event to other security events. For instance, like the VPN situation. So if somebody's VPN credentials have been stolen and a VPN authentication is occurring to a device inside a network, and there are analytics available there across the vectors that we're analyzing that would indicate that this is something abnormal and be able to isolate the host, for instance, as a protection measure. And so historic behavior, yeah.
Yeah, so actually in the last week, so I did a phone update, and I had intentionally told Google, hey, leave all the work apps out of your VPN solution because it's going to bounce around to protect my device myself. And I turned it off, did the exclusions, it did an update, rebooted the phone. And then the next morning I get a message from internal IT. Can you confirm you're good with this? And I'm like, oh, no, it did an update. I looked in, all the exclusions were wiped away. The vendor didn't keep exclusions. So you're spot on because the historical showed it was excluded. And all of a sudden, boom, even though it's a legitimate, like Apple does, Android has their own paths. And even though it's a trusted network, I would say that we all know those trusted networks can be very untrusted because there's people that are using it for malicious use. Like, oh, it's just AWS and Azure. Yeah, you saying 99% or 100% of everybody in that environment is on the up and up? No.
Yeah, that's a huge point. And those are the table stakes these days for protecting your cloud applications. Automated response in cloud can be the difference between, a business email compromise going the wrong direction and it not.
Can you guys talk about? I want to, and if this, I hope this doesn't derail it, but like I think the risk of that kind of response and locking out a user for potentially is that what if it's a false positive? What if it's like how do you balance that? Because I mean, on one hand, I get it. Like if we think something bad's happening, I'd rather err on like let's block it and then investigate and figure it out because that's just it's just we can re-enable the account or reset the password or whatever. But on the other hand, you can have a really pissed off end user if they're in the middle of doing something legitimate and then I don't know. I guess I'm curious. I'm sure you've dealt with it. I know we have. I don't know. How do you respond to that?
That's a really good question. One of the important functions that have been built into this type of platform is the ability to toggle that level of tolerance for when an automated response will happen and when it won't, based on your confidence in it being a security event. So there are 3 default policies that you can select from that will impact this specific thing. There's a limited, balanced, and aggressive policy that really allows you to toggle that threshold. Specifically, it's adjusting how often you want an automated response to occur based on the level of confidence you have in an event. So an aggressive policy, for instance, is saying, hey, we want you to prioritize security at all costs, shoot first, ask questions later, security on the max. So even if there's just a modest level of confidence in a security event, err on the side of caution, automate a security response first to that event. If you go the other direction to the limited profile sort of toggles the threshold the other way. It says, unless you have a high level of confidence that this is a security event, we want you to escalate to a security analyst first. Then a highly skilled security analyst, 24/7, 365, will first investigate the incident and determine the response action thereafter. We have a middle ground, balanced, obviously, which is the recommended policy that would apply, which is a nice middle ground between the two. But you can further tailor these policies by specifying a particular user, ID, host name, just in case.
Bob.
Yeah, just in case. You can specify my user and the or any other identifier in the applicable policy that you'd like to have applied, and you can get that granular as to implement that level of protection. So that's definitely a good question that's come up a few times.
Well, I think, IT folks are going to get that question, right? And I think there's the other thing that comes to mind as you were talking through that is like, you can't only think about 8 to 5, right? like these things might happen at 2 a.m. on a weekend when you're on vacation. Not you, Michael, because you can't go on vacation, but you know, and like, do I want to make sure that I'm getting that alert and having to triage that and figure that out? I know that like Field Effect works with you on that regard, but like if you say don't take the action, that's going to be on you or your team to take that action versus something that might be happening in the middle of the night too. So it's interesting. There's definitely a bunch of different variables and dynamics to try and factor when you make those kind of decisions. But I love it. I didn't realize you could do it on the user level, because I think that's great. I mean, you definitely like, okay, so-and-so's clicked on the phishing test every single time we've sent it to them. I'm going to ratchet theirs up, right? I mean, let's do that. I think that's legitimate.
And
Absolutely.
so in all my years of doing IT, there's a lot of numbers on that year, but every time there's been a major event, it's in the off hours. This was not while I've been here. It's been in the off hours of the client's hours, or it's been on a holiday weekend or during a major event. So the attacks are always going to be, hey, click on this for inexpensive tickets to the Olympics. Click. Oops.
Yeah, I remember the first the first month, because we didn't start using MDR technology as a standard in our client base until probably early 2018, and I think it was January 2018 to be very specific. And I remember one of the first signals we got was on a Sunday. It was on a Sunday evening, and it said, and we were warned like, hey, this client just clicked on ransomware. It hasn't deployed yet, but if you don't respond right now, they're gonna walk into their machine tomorrow morning being encrypted, and we were able to stop it. But yeah, again, the very first memorable thing that happened, I remember when we first deployed this type of technology. It happened on a Sunday evening. So yeah.
But even like so Ryan even started saying, hey, they're gonna jump in and do some reconnaissance. So in the days that you were talking about, 2019, they'd usually bull China shop. They'd come in, do their damage, and leave. Now they want to come in, live, watch, react, read.
That's true.
And then inject in between. So you think, oh, this is normal communication. I didn't see those emails. Oh, the junk email folder is full of stuff that shouldn't be. Hey, I have a rule that I didn't create.
It's funny. It may seem obvious, but threat actors are trying to do this stuff when nobody's around, so they don't see what's happening.
Yeah.
I literally had a call 3 weeks ago with somebody who had a client who called them up and was like, my computer's doing stuff and I'm not doing anything. I'm not touching my mouse and there's stuff happening on my screen and I don't know what's going on. And their default response was to just like pull the cord, like pull the power cord on the computer and shut her down. And so as an attacker, it's advantageous, obviously, if somebody's not sitting in front of the computer watching what's going on, because you ideally want to maintain access to that particular system or the system in general.
I mean, obviously, every time you see any images of a hacker, it's always dark out, so it must be night. It must be nighttime when they do their work.
Absolutely.
So, right.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So let's bring this all together, Ryan. I mean, I think that you've talked about these different solutions and how all this telemetry is critical to kind of do all this work, but bring it together, because I think there's and maybe one of the things I think to talk about is so there's the 365 side of things or the cloud side of things, right? Which is something that even today, I would say that it's still a relatively new, not email security. I'm not talking about that's been around for a long time. I'm talking about like cloud EDR or MDR, depending which one you call it. I always get them confused because I'm a non-technical person. And then there's like the other solution that some of these, like the network telemetry that we're talking about, like those solutions historically have been very expensive. They've been used in the enterprise, but when you talk SMB, that's a different story. But the last thing I'll kind of tee it up with this is our team gets lots of visibility into a lot of cyber liability underwriting questionnaires because our clients ask us to help them answer the questions because of the solutions that they're getting from us. They don't know the details, and so we're there sharing the information. And every single one I've seen in recent months has had a question about cloud, doing some sort of cloud level security beyond email filtering, and whether they're doing any type of network scanning telemetry as well. And those are two solutions that most SMB do not have in place today. But as of like the last 3 months, I've seen them on every single cyber liability questionnaire. And so chances are, when anyone listening or watching to this now or in the coming like 6, 12, 9 months, 6, 9, 12 months, yeah, I got those inversed, is going to have that on their cyber liability, and they're going to get, it's going to be a question they have to answer. Doesn't mean you're not going to be able to get underwritten, but you might get a worse rates or lower coverage because you don't have these solutions in place. So can you just like wrap it all together and kind of finish it up in that capacity?
Yeah, absolutely. So you highlighted a great point that cyber liability insurance requirements are changing, and increasingly to qualify for cyber insurance, you're completing a questionnaire, and the requirements on those questionnaires are evolving every year, primarily because they're influenced by the financial model associated with cyber insurance.
Well, let's be more direct than that. The reason why the question is on the questionnaire is because they've experienced an incident or a breach or a claim that was paid out because that was exploited. Like that, let's be real. That's exactly why it's on there. It's because they know that if not having this increases your probability of a claim.
Absolutely. And they're also, that's exactly it. They're highlighting these exploited gaps that are persistently coming up in all of the claims. And these will be new requirements that we observe happening, just like you were starting to see, hey, we need 12 months log retention so that we can do forensic investigations back 12 months. Those are changing also because the nature of the attacks are happening much more expeditiously than they used to. So the timeframes are changing, but also the requirements are changing, like visibility into the cloud. So that trend will continue. One of the big challenges for many IT service providers, managed service providers, and organizations out there is cybersecurity tool sprawl. There are a couple of inherent challenges with that, right? It's like, hey, we've got 6, 8, or in some cases 30 to 50 tools out there that our teams have to use. And you've got IT operators bouncing between multiple solutions. Not only is that hard to manage, just strictly from an operations standpoint, but the tools, they also aren't designed necessarily to talk to each other. Sometimes you need to validate, hey, I'm observing something over here that looks weird, but I need to look at another solution or some other data set to validate, is that a security event or not? I don't 100% know. They don't naturally talk to each other. So the importance of having a unified system is absolutely a requirement to, being able to make those detections much faster. And so we're going to see the need for a more unified approach, something that allows you to see detailed information about the 3 vectors. Both, we're seeing it right now in the cybersecurity space. As these vectors continue to get attacked, and it will become a requirement on insurance forms, insurance applications forms in the future. It is definitely the way things are going, if they haven't already arrived that way.
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, while this is an educational session, right, and we start talking about but we're talking about real tools, real problems, and real solutions. And like, look, do you need to use field effect? I mean, for us, yeah, I'd love you to, because we've evaluated lots of different solutions out there, and they're one that we've chosen to partner with because of everything Ryan's talked about. But there are other solutions out there. I think the primary point that we just want to look, we all as a community need to work together to increase our awareness and education and how we protect our companies and the end users that ultimately rely on us as IT operators to help support them. And so recognizing that these threats are real and trying to seek solutions that are, again, there's lots of different solutions out there that talk about these things, and you have to find the one that fits best for you. But again, I think from this session, we really wanted to hit on some solutions some problems that we're seeing in the market today consistently, which is still business email compromise, and that a lot of bad actors know how to evade most security solutions that are in place, and having solutions that can you can't get around like being able to scan like the network telemetry and the kernel telemetry of the infrastructure. You can't get around it. And so you have to be, I mean, really, if you want to continue your journey of securing your environments and getting the right data and telemetry to be able to take action, you have to have solutions like that in place. So if you don't have that in place today, again, we're happy to talk to you and go deeper. Again, whether it be us and Field Effect that you want to work with, or anybody else, you're just trying to educate yourself, we'd be happy to have a conversation. But they're a great partner, and they've got a great solution, and we've been able to mitigate lots of threats by having this extra data at our fingertips and be able to take very fast action when we've seen incidents of a potential compromise. And so that's ultimately what we want to be able to do, and you got to have good partners to do it with. So with that said, Michael, any final thoughts? And then Ryan, I'll turn it to you for any final thoughts, and then we'll adjourn.
No, I'm all good. I think I covered everything that relates to this throughout the call, so we're good.
Awesome. Ryan, closing out from Field Effect.
I think there were some really important points made, and you summarized it really well, Nathan. I appreciate everybody listening today, and definitely follow up if there are any further questions about anything we talked about.
All right, well, stay tuned. Next month, we have more sessions lined up. I don't know if we have a date locked down yet, but we already identified like 2 or 3 other sessions we want to do with Field Effect, going deeper into some of the subsets. But please follow the IT Leaders Collaborative. Join us on LinkedIn. If you've got questions or comments, we've actually had people, this is exactly what we want to have happen. If you have questions between these sessions, you don't have to watch these sessions to do it. Put it in the LinkedIn channel. We've even done that where we've explored like 365 security solutions, and we've dug into scenarios. And so we love those questions so that we can respond and interact and hopefully learn from each other as well. So join the collaborative. It's a LinkedIn group, as well as follow this. And this recording will be posted. And stay tuned for future events. We do them on a monthly basis, and we'd love to see you at a future IT Leaders Collaborative session. Have a great day, everybody. Take care.
Thank you.